All right. In today's video, we're going to talk a little bit about how to design your LinkedIn account so that journalists will automatically want to interview you, will want to reach out to you, and will want to connect with you. At the same time, how to set up your LinkedIn account so that when you approach a journalist, that your LinkedIn profile immediately gives off the right type of vibe, the right information about your company and the message that you're trying to convey to a potential journalist or an editor that you're trying to get in contact with. My name is Rafi, and I will be the presenter for today. And let's dig right in. So, connect and link with journalists in unique ways. And so, let's talk a little bit about how to be unique. So we're living in the information age today, and we are constantly bombarded with tons and tons of information, right? Anything you want to learn. There's just so many messages, so many microphones going on all around you everywhere. So unless your product or service or brand or news is unique, they're not going to look at you. Okay? You have to stand out from all this noise and all this crowd. Even if you're in the niche-based marketing, meaning you're targeting a specific market, you still have to be unique because there are tons of other people within that niche probably also creating content, also producing news, also reaching out with messages, brand messages to their audiences. And you want to make sure that you make yourself stand out from those people. On a daily basis, on an hourly basis, and every single minute, news makes it impossible to look different. Okay? Because there's so much news out there. If you just open up Facebook and you go to the Facebook news feed, tons and tons and tons and tons of people sharing tons and tons of different ideas. So it takes some extra work to be unique and to stand out from all those things, right? Because people are creating all sorts of stuff. So how can you attract journalists in particular? If you're a company, you're a media, you're a brand, and you want to attract the attention of a journalist, how do you make your news, your message, your story be different from every other one that's getting pitched that they're running into? In this video, I'm going to be talking about using LinkedIn in particular and how you can optimize your LinkedIn account or even your company's LinkedIn account to make sure that your news comes off as unique to your target audience, which case, in this particular case, it'll be journalists, freelance columnists, and editors of big name publications, the news, news stations, even TV. So what you're going to need is obviously a plan to get the media attention, one that'll actually help you land the coverage that you need. Whether you need to raise your public profile or a new product, media coverage is one of the best ways to get your brand noticed. If you haven't already realized that by now, you should have already realized it as you're watching this. And journalists love your different and out of the box approach. In fact, that's the only thing they're interested in. Majority of the time, if something is already out there, everybody's talking about it, everybody's doing it, then it's not news. By definition, news means something that's noteworthy, something that's out of the ordinary, right? They need something new to promote because they want to be enticing to the audience that they serve, the people that they reach out to, because that's the whole point of a news station or a journal or a publication is to attract attention, attract visitors on the web, or attract listeners if you're a radio station by sharing something that the audience would be interested in, something different or something that's unique. So LinkedIn seems, we think of LinkedIn like a pretty boring platform. So how do you make it happen on LinkedIn? How can you be interesting on LinkedIn? So why is LinkedIn the best? We're going to talk about telling your story, the why we part of it. We're going to talk a little bit about establishing reasonable goals on your profile. We're going to talk a little bit about building rapport with reporters, which is something very, very important. We're going to talk a little bit about connecting with journalists whenever we can. We're going to create the pitch, the right pitch that's going to actually resonate with journalists and editors. We're going to talk a little bit about building your reputation in the media. We're going to talk about closing the deal beautifully. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that you learned at the end. So, why is LinkedIn the best? You need to turn your LinkedIn profile into an effective tool for landing interviews and attracting new opportunities. Majority of journalists rely on social media for finding in new articles and writing new articles, news, gossip, etc. And 94% of the details are coming today to them from LinkedIn. And the reality of this is that, like, LinkedIn is still a very unsaturated type of social media. There's not that much just fluff out there, people are basically more cautious and more selective in what they published on there, and people are in general sharing business related things on LinkedIn. So the first thing journalists go when they want to look at someone's persona is LinkedIn. So it's a wonderful place for them to go start researching about who you are, what your company is about, and business related things are about you. A well-crafted LinkedIn profile allows you to provide something that no resume or cover letter can do for you. It lets you showcase yourself in multiple heights to paint a picture for yourself as well as a whole new person instead of just a typical resumes full of dates and slogans. It lets you really get creative with it. It gives you an opportunity to share your testimonials, share your recommendations. It lets you, gives you a chance to share media and links to different places where you've been featured and mentioned. It gives you all that kind of ability that you possibly couldn't do from a piece of paper or from a press release even. It helps you build your professional brand and magnify your professional network all around. It's important to pay attention to the little things. For example, spelling and grammar all through your profile. I've seen great summaries completely look silly just because of very obvious like grammar and typos that they made. And I've personally had these kind of things pointed out to me where I spelled like the name of one of my companies that I've worked at incorrectly, or I think there was time when I actually misspelled something in my like my personal, like my headline of my LinkedIn. There was a big typo, and those things can. I've worked at agencies before, and I'm telling you, some of the biggest mistakes go unnoticed. But when you make a small mistake, like a mistake on your LinkedIn profile, like a typo or something like that, it can sometimes cost you a deal. It can sometimes cause a journalist from not moving forward. You'd be surprised how often that actually happens. So be extra cautious with spelling and grammar. As a startup founder, I know that young startups are desperate to get featured in big name publications and top blogs. However, getting fast exposure is vital to your growth. But most of us don't have the money to hire a PR firm. If you come to me and you say, "Hey, Rafi, I want to get into big name publications," first thing I'm going to say is, "Okay, great. That's amazing. What kind of budgets are you working with?" Because hiring PR and letting a PR company do the work for you has never been something cheap because it's very hard to do PR. So you have to pay oftentimes big bucks to make the needle move on that. But you can do PR for yourself, and I'm going to teach you guys how using LinkedIn. So, harnessing the power of LinkedIn for your story is the best thing you can ever do. Even if you have a great PR tool which doesn't cost much, you still might end up struggling to reach out to press with your do-it-yourself methods. Luckily, if you understand how PR pitches work, you can do it yourself successfully, and you won't need to hire me. Because if you hire me, like I said, you're gonna be paying tons of money. You'll get the results, and it'll be worth it. But I'm just saying, PR in general, no matter who you work with, is not something cheap. So what's the secret to landing press coverage? Doing something will get the media's attention. Big ticket stars use this tactic all the time. From celebrities to startups selling widgets, the idea is the same. The media wants something that will get their readers' attention because you have to think about it from their standpoint. They're interested in stories that people are going to share. That's going to drive a whole bunch of traffic to their website. It's going to drive traffic from social media to their website. That's going to make people want to visit their website or tune into their station or watch their news segment, right? So they're always interested in things that are unique, things that are creative, things that are noteworthy, things that are out of the ordinary. You have to keep that in mind. You cannot be telling them boring stuff from a boring, generic angle. You've got to find uniqueness in whatever story you're pitching. Give it to them, and your chances of exposure will immediately increase. Don't give it to them, you probably have no chances at all. 44% of journalists get pitched a minimum of 20 times a day. Just imagine that you get 20 pitches every single day if you're a journalist. The best way for you to get into the press is by having an amazing company story, one that will actually help you stand out from every other 19 that's pitching alongside you every day. And I'm not saying that they pick one per day, by the way. They're much pickier than that sometimes. Your story is your chance to present yourself in news in a way that's irresistible to the press. Again, I repeat that your story is the most important aspect of it. Okay, you've got to tell them a story that's going to make them want to be more curious. That's going to make them want to come into their house and interview. That's going to make them want to instantly give you a question and answer uh, a survey or something so they can find out more about who you are. It's going to make them want to call you. So you have to create an amazing story. It's your raison d'etre, your reason for existence. So first thing you need to do is improve your personal story along with your startup story. So make yourself look good. Your startup will automatically look good. And this will help give your company a face and add a human aspect, which is very important for making into the news. If you look at some of the most successful companies out there, you will realize that they all have some sort of a persona attached to them. You can think of like um, what's that the first one I think about is like Flo, the character of Flo, and she has the I think she's Flo is with that insurance company, so that's the first image that you think of, the first thing that comes to your mind. You can think of like McDonald's has that the guy, I don't even know, like his basically I guess his name is McDonald, and but he's this yellow M, and then there's this sitting this uncle looking guy, and that's the first thing you think about. You can think of some other successful personal brands like Polo has this persona that's just this guy, and he's like this old school guy, and that's the first thing when you think of Polo is that image. So having a strong personal brand, and again in the marketing space that where I operate, there are examples like Neil Patel who does a really good job with personal branding and content marketing. There's people like Rand Fishkin behind Moz. There's even think about Google. Google has a face too. Google's face is actually Matt Cutts. He's the head of spam at Google, and he pretty much is the one that everybody follows anytime they want to learn about new updates that are happening with Google algorithms and things like that. So having a personal brand is super important because again, people don't like to talk to companies or products or services. They want to talk to people. They want to buy the person behind the news. They want to buy the person behind the product or service. So make sure that you have a really stellar personal brand that's attached to your company as well. So go beyond the traditional why I started this business, instead be persuasive. Show the world why your business needs to exist. Mention what problem you're actually looking to solve or you are already solving, and what you're doing to change the world as it is today. By developing a strong and captivating story, you'll be off to a great start. Your story will lay the foundation for helping media coverage. So spend time on this and make sure that your story is a really good one. So establish reasonable goals in your profile. Create a list of tasks you need to do on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, and on a yearly basis. The next thing you're going to do is focus on setting clear and realistic goals. So if you start out today and like this lady, Nicole Williams, you have 2,000 followers, and all of a sudden you're like, well, by the end of this week, I want to have, 500,000 followers. I mean, that could happen, especially with today's world of paid advertising and things like that, but it's unlikely. It's unlikely you're going to go from 2,000 followers to 500,000 followers in a week. But if you set that goal maybe over a period of a year, hey, it's certainly possible. It could happen, right? It's not unrealistic anymore. So focus on SMART goals. Set your aims carefully with a big picture in mind. Instead of becoming famous, be specific. Set goals that'll actually help you reach your upper objectives. Increase brand awareness by aiming well-known publications, for example, or alert possible customers to a new product by pursuing coverage in niche publications that are target market visits. Those are examples of you being very specific and articulating your objectives in a way that is quantifiable and that is transient rather than being something that doesn't have any sort of timestamp behind it. So you want to build rapport with reporters, which is something very, very important. It's the most important aspect of all this. Check your LinkedIn connections and pick all the reporters and journalists and make a spreadsheet. And I have some great videos on how to search LinkedIn, but you can pretty much type in the name of any publication on LinkedIn, hit people, hit that second degree check mark, and you will instantly be able to actually narrow down and find specifically people that write for that particular publication, people that are editors, people that are somehow involved with that. You can filter down even more, but based on their actual job at the publication, and export that information from LinkedIn into a spreadsheet. There are plenty of tools like that. There's one tool in particular that I use. It's called AnyLeads, and it'll do something like that for you. But there's, again, if they're already friends with you, LinkedIn directly allows you to download their contact information. But if they're not, you can use various types of lead, like email extraction tools, and get their email addresses, put them all in an Excel document first, or like a Google spreadsheet. Note down the name of the reporter, the publication they work for, and the industry or the niche where they operate and where they cover. Also, jot down links to a few fresh articles they've written linked to your industry. You can also add the Twitter profile and link to their website or their blog. So here's where the fun begins, because you get to research your reporter and start becoming familiar with who this person actually is. You got to really know your editor before you make a pitch. The reporter's LinkedIn and Twitter profile give you a fair idea of what the industry and topics that they write about. You'll also want to know which publication they work for, whether they write regularly on the industry in which in which your product or service is based. Also check LinkedIn groups they've joined to understand whether your pitch will be of interest to them or not. And there are tons of reporters, journalists, freelance editors, freelance columnists within these LinkedIn groups. You got to join some of them at least, and you'll see what I mean. There's no point in pitching to a diet critic if you have urbanized a time tracking app, you know? So you have to make sure that the person that you're reaching out to, the journalist and columnist that you're reaching out to, actually writes about the thing that you're trying to pitch to them. If they have no relationship whatsoever with what you do, then it's going to be much, much harder for them to write on a topic that they're not an expert on. Most journalists, most reporters, most columnists only write on things that they are absolutely experts on. That's why the publication allows them to write on that topic. You would be better off speaking to a technology reporter or someone who covers efficiency and employee administration. If you're the one who, if you're the CEO if you own a startup that has maybe like some sort of tracking app. This is what I call report building in detail. Pay attention to what they write, how they write, and start working on that based off of that finding. So this is why you really have to do some research on the writer and the columnist that you're about to pitch before you even reach out to them. Never underestimate the significance of connections. Take the time to connect with the reporters on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, or else in person. If you can in person, that's the best way to do it. If you can't do it in person, try to get on a call with them, try to get on a video chat with them, anything you can to personalize the connection more. Present yourself properly and start a connection. You'll have much, much better results than just cold pitching them. And if you're on Facebook, if you haven't already, you should definitely join my group. It's called Columnists of Major Publications. I've done a lot of the work for you guys by going ahead and connecting with tons and tons and tons of reporters and journalists from various publications all around the web, and many of them are in that group on Facebook. So now let me tell you the how. Use Twitter. Most reporters can be found on Twitter, and nearly 60% have a Twitter account. So follow them and start chatting about day-to-day life, a TV show they're tweeting on screen, sports episode, or their fixed coffee shop stopover. So initiate conversations with them by talking about something that they post about, that they write about. You can link with reporters locally as well. If they're local, it's essential to link up in person, go to events, sessions, or seminars to have a face-to-face conversation with them. Most importantly, help them with their stuff. Provide value to them, and try to engage the reciprocity principle, where you offer a ton of value so they'll feel like they owe you something now. And a really great way to connect with reporters is by making their life easy with stuff they're working on already. Help them with a piece they're writing on, one that's separate from your business, by referring them to an industry or invention that you know about. I talked in my in another video. I talked about Haro. Help a reporter out is an outstanding source, and tell them about it. They'll love to connect with you after your kind and understanding gesture. So make their life easy. Introduce them some technology and tools that makes their work easy, and help them with their actual work as well. And they're going to appreciate you that much more. And when you do go to make a pitch, it's just like getting a client. The more you've helped them out, the more you warmed up to the idea of you and the services that you provide, the more likely they're going to want to work with you once you do make a pitch to them. So it's important to look at it from a media's perspective. Ask yourself if your story is exciting to a reporter. Think about stuff they'll want to publish. Instead of creating how we did it, make it something like why we did it, why it's important. Create something worth reading. Always, it's more important to talk about the whys behind things a lot of times than it is to talk about the hows. The hows can come after it, but talk about the reasons behind something happened, and it's easier for the story to appeal to the emotions of not only just to your editors but also to your target audience. So build your reputation in the media. Getting up on the reporter's radar isn't easy, and I never said it was, and it never will be, because again, there's tons of pitches. You might be able to secure a connection, but to get them to write about you, you will need to be exceptionally good at what you do. So start building your reputation in the media platform is going to be quite catchy. And so you have to do something that again draws in their attention. So what you want to do is share valuable articles, related studies, or industry related info to attract a reporter. So you've got to be an industry expert. You've got to constantly educate, teach, share, and give away a ton of value. And you have to pay attention to how you write your story or firsthand account. Make them come to you. If you do a really, really good job with getting your story out there from within your own platforms, like your own website, your own social media channels, they're gonna come to you. And that happened to me a couple of years back when I launched this this nonprofit. I knew that hosting my first meeting at a place that already was used to getting a lot of media coverage would automatically draw media attention to me as well. So when I hosted this at this local kind of like a nonprofit restaurant that's always been in the media consistently, I posted that I was going to have my chess foundation's first meeting there. Instantly, reporters called me and said, "Hey, we want to cover this story. Would you, can we come can we come and interview you guys and do a report on it? And I was like, sure. And next thing I know, the local news and station and everybody's there, and we have a really nice, awesome story created. And I spent $0 on marketing and PR and any of that for that. And I didn't even reach out to any reporters. They reached out to me. So close the deal beautifully. Beautifully. How do you do that? And again, if you don't think it's a deal, it is a deal. You're still doing some deals here because you're trying to convince someone to write about you. You're trying to convince a publication or a news station or TV personnel to cover you and your story, right? There's tons of stories they could have covered. So how do you do that? You have to create attractive and detailed resources for the media. Be ready to provide the information they ask for. Time is of the essence, so foresee their questions and stash your answers and resources in view of that. Don't be too pushy though. If they did take your story to read, follow up after a few days to ask them for the results. Wait for them to respond to you. Be patient with your reminder calls and emails. So you want to be persistent and reach out to them, and you want to make sure that you have a good story that you pitch to the right person, but you don't want to be like too pushy either. You don't want to keep following like twice a day. Send them an email, wait a day. They don't respond to the email, send them another one, wait a couple of days. They still don't respond. Reach out to them on social media. You know, you can do maybe simultaneously as well. Reach out to social media and email. And if they don't respond, give them a call, or you can switch up the order of how you do it. But just make sure that you're consistent, you're persistent with your outreach, but that you don't come off as nagging or annoying. If that happens, then they will just straight up start ignoring you. They'll hit the spam button real quick. So you don't want to cross that line either. So what did you learn from all of this today? You need to remember that journalists are always in the guard for exciting stories. You have to know that they're looking for that. If you have a good story, they're looking for you. As you've now as you've now connected with them, they've heard a little bit about your product or service, and they may agree to take the next step than just being a connection to you. They may actually want to write about you. So make sure to read. So make sure to be ready with a good story that they can get published in, so you can get published in it. Just don't overdo yourself. Be natural and express your interest to move to the next level. Just talk to them and be confident with how you approach it. Have a story. Like I said, having a story that sells makes everything so much easier. And make sure that you get them to take the next move forward. And if they aren't interested, don't pester them with it some more. Reach out to a different publication, different journalist, or reach out to the same journalist with a completely different story, and chances are they may consider it the second time around. That's pretty much all I have for you guys today on this segment of making sure that your LinkedIn profile attracts reporters. If you guys have any questions, any comments, leave in the comments below and let me know if this video helped you out, and as well let me know what other topics and videos you would like me to create in the future, and we'll definitely do our best to make sure those kind of videos are coming your way. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you guys in the next video.